Our story began like any other simple love story. I am a 37-year-old Marine, married to Sharon for the past 6 years. She's 2 years older than me, and before getting married, we spent 4 wonderful years getting to know each other and building our bond. Sharon is an incredible person, beautiful, intelligent, and always full of humor. These were the very things that drew me toward her. The early years of our marriage were great. My job often kept me deployed for 6 to 7 months a year, and while it wasn't ideal, Sharon understood and accepted it. We thought we could handle the distance and responsibilities together. In the beginning, everything seemed fine. Whenever I returned home, Sharon would greet me with so much joy. Our cozy little home became the center of our happiness. Every time I came back, it felt like a fresh start. Movie nights, dinner dates, and countless shared memories kept our bond strong. But over time, I started noticing a change. During my deployments, her voice on the phone lacked the enthusiasm it once had. When I returned, the warmth in her welcome felt a little diminished. I chalked it up to the stress of my job and the exhausting schedules we both had to endure. But the truth ran much deeper. Everything changed one night. It was just another ordinary evening. I was at the base during my deployment, and we had planned a video call, as we often did. I sat with a glass of wine, and she had prepared steak for herself. Our conversation started lighthearted, filled with laughter and our usual banter about the day's happenings. Then she said, "I have something to say." There was a seriousness in her tone that I hadn't heard before. I thought it might be some amusing anecdote or a surprise. I smiled and said, "Go on, what's the big news?" But her expression remained somber as she said, "I think we should open up our marriage." At first I thought she was joking. I laughed and replied, "Wow, that's a new one." But her eyes didn't waver, nor did her face show even a hint of amusement. She was calm, serious, and resolute. I stopped laughing instantly. I leaned forward and asked, "Are you serious about this?" Without hesitation, she replied, "Yes. I've thought about this for a long time. I think it's the best option for us." Her words shook me. It was as if my world had flipped upside down. She continued, "Look, your job keeps you away for half the year. It's incredibly hard for me. I've been dealing with this for over a decade now. I feel so alone, and it's breaking me from the inside. I don't feel ashamed admitting that I'm both emotionally and physically unfulfilled." I listened carefully to everything she said. After a moment, I replied, "I understand that this is hard for you, but I thought we had accepted this as part of our life together." She responded immediately, "You thought that, but you're not the one facing this loneliness every single day. Even when you're here, it feels like there's a wall between us. I can't keep living like this." Her words left me stunned. I had always believed our marriage was built on a strong foundation, but now it felt like that foundation was crumbling beneath us. I said, "Look, I know this isn't easy. I understand your loneliness and the pain it causes, but opening up our marriage would mean breaking the commitments we made to each other." She retorted, "So you're saying I should just keep living with this pain and loneliness? For you, this is a job, but for me, it's my entire life." Our conversation turned into a long and heated debate. She said, "I've tried everything to keep this relationship strong, but I'm exhausted. I've been suppressing my needs in this marriage. Don't you think I deserve to be happy too?" I replied, "I never thought you weren't happy because of me. I always believed you had come to terms with this distance, just like I had." She snapped, "You believe that because you never asked me how I cope with this distance." Her eyes filled with tears as she said, "I know it's not easy for you, but it's not easy for me either. I think opening up our marriage would make things better for both of us. At least I could fulfill my emotional and physical needs." I took a deep breath and said, That's not a solution. Opening up our marriage will slowly destroy the relationship we've built. I don't want our marriage to end like that. She responded, Then what's the solution? I can't live like this anymore. That night, our conversation ended unresolved. I finished my deployment and returned home, but her words echoed in my mind. Was our marriage really falling apart? Had I failed to understand her needs all this time? When I returned, we sat down to talk again. We decided to seek professional counseling to help us navigate these issues and try to rebuild our connection. The journey hasn't been easy, even today, but one thing I know for sure is that both of us are trying to save what we have. This story is about relationships that face challenges but refuse to give up. It's for those who believe that love is not just a feeling, but also a responsibility. Spending special days like birthdays and anniversaries alone is painful, absolutely the worst. She once told me how hard it was for her to visit the doctor by herself while dealing with an illness. It was one of the most difficult moments for her, and she broke down while saying it. I could see how tough it was for her, but there wasn't much I could do. This is the life we signed up for, I thought. She said, I never realized it would be this harsh and lonely. It wasn't the first time she had expressed her struggles with loneliness. During the early years of our marriage, some of our well-wishers suggested that she keep herself busy by having a child, but she rejected the idea because she wasn't ready to raise a child on her own. I understood that putting such a big responsibility on her shoulders wouldn't solve anything. It would just replace one problem with another, much bigger one. Together, we decided that we wouldn't have kids until I got a permanent desk job, but that still hasn't happened. One day, I asked her, Do you want to leave our relationship? She immediately replied, No, I love you. I could never leave you. I want to grow old with you, but I'm about to turn 40. In a few more years, I'll hit menopause. There isn't much time left for me to fully enjoy my desires. The best years of my life are slipping away, spent waiting for you. I don't want this. I want to live a full life and not die with regrets. Her words shook me to the core. I realized this conversation wasn't going to end on a happy note. It felt like she wasn't asking for permission, but rather informing me of her decision. I asked her, What is it that you want? She looked straight into my eyes and said, I want to open our marriage. I want to meet other men who can give me what I need. She said this with a clarity that left no room for doubt. I'm going to do this, whether you like it or not. Her words were unsettling. Any man would be shaken by such a statement, and I was no exception. But I took a deep breath and asked, So you want to have relationships with other men while staying married to me? She nodded. I asked, How do you think this will help with your loneliness? Will these men take care of you when you're sick? Will they celebrate your birthdays? What's the deal here? She replied, I don't know yet if it will just be physical or if I'll go on dates with them. But one thing is certain. I love you, and only you. They will only be there to fill the void when you're not around. When you're back, I'll be completely yours. I asked her, How long do you plan to do this? A few years? Forever? She said, I haven't decided yet. I pressed further. Have you already cheated on me? She angrily retorted, No. If I wanted to cheat, I could have done it right under your nose. I don't need to hide anything. I'm doing this because I want to be honest with you. She added, I don't want to betray you. I believe being transparent with you is better than lying. Talking openly about this is better than cheating in our marriage. Hearing her say all this weighed heavily on me. While her words made sense on a surface level, it was incredibly hard for me to accept. There was a contradiction in her reasoning, and it disturbed me deeply. That conversation marked the beginning of the most challenging phase of our relationship. Some of you might understand this, but I'm sorry. I can't accept it. I asked her if I had any say in this decision, and she told me she had already made up her mind. She said that if she didn't go through with it, she'd lose her mind. My head was pounding and I felt like I was about to break. I told her I needed some time to sleep on it, and she said, "All right," before hanging up without even saying goodbye. The ironic part? I was only 3 to 4 weeks away from returning home, and as soon as we reconnected, she dropped this bombshell the next day. I asked her why she didn't tell me when I was home. She said that when I'm with her, she doesn't feel the need for other men. A part of me wanted to believe she was suggesting this purely because of her loneliness, but I couldn't delude myself by living in denial. I asked her directly, "Do you really want this? Have you thought about the consequences?" She answered without hesitation, "Yes." I then asked, "What's the plan? Can I also see other women? How long is this going to last, and how will we manage our finances during this period?" It wasn't that I was agreeing to her plan. I just wanted to understand what she was thinking. She replied, "I'm not overthinking this. All I want is for someone to be there for me when you're gone and for things to go back to normal when you're here. You can experiment during your port days, but why would you even need other women when you're back? I'll be here. For now, this is how we'll start. Let's see how it goes, and eventually, if I feel I've explored everything, maybe we can close it and return to a normal life." I said, "All right, I hear you. But this isn't what I wanted from our marriage. I wanted a pure, monogamous relationship, but since you've already made up your mind, I won't stop you. Just remember, I don't want an open marriage. If you move forward with your plan, don't expect me to sit here and accept it quietly. You'll have to face the consequences." She laughed and had the audacity to ask, "What are you going to do about it?" I calmly responded, "I'll figure it out. I don't know yet. But if this is the path you're taking, here's what will happen. First, you'll have to manage your own expenses. I'll stop contributing to our joint account. Second, we'll cut off all forms of contact. As long as you're living this lifestyle, I won't message or call you. Third, I'll start seeing other women too, and you won't have any say in that." She laughed like she had just hit the jackpot. "I knew you'd come around," she said. "I'm already so excited about this new adventure. It's going to be fun. I know you won't go too far. How could anyone leave such a stunning beauty?" She started dressing up, clearly thrilled about her plan. I interrupted her. "Stop. My conditions apply from now on, so go ahead and enjoy yourself." Then I hung up without saying anything more. I stopped thinking about her and started focusing on my own plans. She occasionally tried to reach out to me, but I never responded. She began posting pictures of her date nights and vacations, and it wasn't hard to figure out what she was up to. A selfie in a hot tub, rose petals in the background, candles and 2 wine glasses. It was all pretty self-explanatory. One day, her sister messaged me saying she and their mother were worried about Sharon's behavior and wondered if I knew what was going on. I told her the truth, that Sharon had talked about our marriage without my consent because she felt lonely between her legs. Yes, Sharon cut me off after that, but who cares? My leave is coming up soon. I've already asked my brother to find me an apartment. I told him everything, and now my parents know about it too. I've also hired a lawyer and discussed my case. Once I return to the city, I'll meet with them and take the next steps. I'm in no rush. I plan to take things slow and handle this my way. I'll update this during the holidays or after I return. Thank you for reading this far. If you've made it here, let's address the real issue. Sharon essentially gave up on our marriage. Dropping the "let's open our marriage" bomb while I was deployed was unfair, but it seems like she had already opened it without me. And we all know how open marriages turn out when they're one-sided. We both agreed on this life together, but now it feels like she's decided the sacrifices only apply to me. She made it clear that she no longer wants to play by the same rules. That's not on me. I made it clear I wasn't okay with this. Now, let me address something that's been bothering me. Many people in the comments, and generally a lot of those who sympathize with women married to deployed men, always seem to pity them. Oh, poor woman has to live alone despite being married. What about her needs? And yes, I get it. Everything they say is true. But no one forces these women to marry men like us. It's a choice they make. She lives in a 4-bedroom duplex with a pool in the backyard. She drives a car she could never afford on her elementary school teacher's salary. She carries designer bags and wears a watch worth more than her yearly income. So let's not ignore the perks she gets from this lifestyle. And let me tell you, it's not easy for us to remain loyal either. Our job involves traveling the world and stopping in port cities where every luxury is at our fingertips. Yet, some of us choose to stay faithful to our partners. Sadly, we don't get nearly enough credit for that. Now for the update, I didn't return to the house we once shared. Instead, I moved into a new apartment my brother helped me set up. They welcomed me into their home for a few days. I spent time with my niece and nephew, taking them to a weekend camp, and then spent a relaxing weekend in my old hometown with my parents. I caught up with school friends and neighbors, making sure to enjoy myself while also sharing updates on social media. My short break was all about spending quality time with family, reconnecting with friends, and attending parties hosted by senior officials in my circle. These parties were exclusive and highly sought after, definitely not open to everyone. Sharon used to love these events and was always excited to attend them with me. I didn't hold back from posting pictures from these parties, which included shots with women as well. Whenever someone asked me about Sharon, I was honest and told them the truth. Before long, everyone in my circle knew what had happened between us. Some acquaintances even sent her inappropriate messages based on what they'd heard. In the early weeks, she seemed fine with her newfound freedom, even when she saw photos of me spending time with my family. She messaged me, asking where I was living and why I hadn't returned to our home, but her tone remained composed. She even said, "I'll wait for you." But the moment she saw me enjoying the parties, she lost her temper. Her tone shifted to accusations. "Why did you leave me? Didn't we agree to go back to our marriage whenever you were in town?" After months of ignoring her, I finally replied, "I never agreed to anything. You did what you wanted, and now I'm doing what I want." She responded with, "Fine. I'll wait for you to finish whatever you're doing." She seemed to think she could manipulate me emotionally, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. Since then, I focused on rebuilding my life. I joined a badminton club, played doubles for 2 hours, and followed it up with swimming. I also enrolled in an upskilling course I'd been meaning to take for a while. While she was exploring her freedom, I was busy creating a new routine for myself. There's no better feeling than shedding the weight of unnecessary baggage. I started going to the gym regularly, socializing more often, and reconnecting with old friends. I wasn't interested in revenge or getting involved with anyone else. I just wanted to rediscover who I was outside of the marriage. Surprisingly, it wasn't what I thought it would be. I felt healthier and happier. By the 4th month, my life had truly started to take shape. During this time, she reached out again, asking to meet. Apparently, she wanted to discuss the rules of our open marriage, but I wasn't interested. I told her, "You're free to do whatever you want, but I'm not playing this game with you." When she saw me building a new and better life without her, she couldn't take it. She sent me an email suggesting we return to monogamy because she was tired of it all. It was as if she thought this was a door she could open and close at her convenience. I replied, "Yes, that's it," and moved on with my life. One day, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked anxious and uncomfortable. Standing at the door, she demanded to know why I was staying there instead of coming back home. I told her, "Because I have no intention of living with someone who doesn't respect our marriage." She didn't like my answer and said, "I thought we could work this out." I responded, "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." She started crying and said that everyone in her social circle was treating her coldly. Nobody invited her to their parties anymore, and my friends and their wives had distanced themselves from her. Sharon used to have a close-knit group of friends, but now nobody wanted to be associated with the bad apple. They had completely ghosted her. I simply said, "You reap what you sow." She insisted we go to couples counseling and work on our marriage. I couldn't help but laugh out loud at her suggestion. She asked, "What do you want?" I replied, "You'll find out soon enough." With tears in her eyes, she asked, "You've met someone, haven't you? You're in love with her, right?" I laughed even harder and said, "Keep guessing." She pleaded for an answer, but I yelled, "Leave!" She finally walked away, saying I'd regret betraying her trust. Meanwhile, I was in regular contact with my lawyer, and the paperwork was nearly complete. I wanted to serve her the papers while I was away at sea, ensuring she couldn't retaliate by showing up at my apartment. The day I left shore, my lawyer sent her the divorce notice. She panicked and called me, accusing me of betraying her and leaving her broken. She even called my lawyer, claiming she'd fight it to the end and wouldn't agree to the divorce. Then she tried to play the victim by reaching out to my parents. She told them that I had blindsided her. But what she didn't know was that my parents already knew the truth. They scolded her and soon cut ties with her completely. Her mother called me, saying Sharon had told everyone that we mutually agreed to open our marriage. While her family found the idea distasteful, they assumed it was a personal choice we both made. I clarified, "Absolutely not. I've already told your other daughter the truth about Sharon's actions. I was never on board with this ridiculous idea." Her mother then told me that Sharon's mental health had deteriorated because everyone had cut her off. She wasn't invited to high-profile parties anymore, and word of her actions had spread like wildfire. She said Sharon felt devastated that she was being excluded from my social circle even after everything we'd been through. Her mother asked if there was any chance for reconciliation. I firmly said, "Absolutely not. I cannot be the husband of a woman who for the past year has thrown herself at strangers. Who knows what filth she's brought into her life?" She told me Sharon wasn't willing to agree to a divorce. I said, "The more she resists, the more painful it will be for her. Because I'm moving on with my life and she isn't going to like it, I've asked her family to speak with her and convince her to cooperate for her own good. In the meantime, I'm receiving endless texts and voicemails filled with her pleas and apologies. I haven't blocked her yet, but I will soon. Until then, I want her to sit with the consequences of her choices." Update 2. Here's the latest update. I'm on another short break, and the divorce proceedings are ongoing. Sharon is aggressively fighting against it. But the reality is that she's completely broken. The shiny new world she imagined isn't as glamorous as she thought it would be. The men she was spending her time with are nowhere to be found now. She broke down in front of the magistrate, admitting that opening the marriage was a mistake, and begged to go back to how things used to be. Since I stopped funding her lifestyle, she's burned through her savings in less than a year. Her teaching job can't afford her the designer dresses and luxuries she once enjoyed. When you're used to a lavish lifestyle, going back to basics is nearly impossible. She thought opening the marriage and dipping into her savings would be a temporary fix. She assumed I would eventually come back around and resume funding her life. That was her plan, to pretend to be faithful when I was home and then live recklessly while I was away. Her plan backfired entirely. At every court hearing, she pleads for another chance, saying she wants things to go back to how they were before this mess began. It's easy for her to say, "Let's start over." But I can't forget the humiliation and trauma I endured during those first 6 months after she told me. She deliberately dropped the news right after I set sail, knowing I'd have 6 months to sit with it before returning. I'll never forget those dark, foggy days at sea, staring into the vast ocean, feeling consumed by despair. With nowhere to escape and limited distractions, the stress became unbearable at times. Some days I felt like throwing myself into the water. Anyway, the divorce is now nearing its conclusion. There's just one more hearing left. The asset division has been handled, and while the settlement is fair, it doesn't really matter to me. I plan to sell the house because I have no desire to return to a place where our marriage unraveled. Sharon can't afford to buy it, not even half its value. That's fine by me. I don't want to hold on to anything from my past life with her. I've fallen in love with my new life. I'm thriving, I've met new people, built a solid routine, and embraced the freedom that comes with living life on my own terms. I'm not bitter, just grateful that I didn't let her choices dictate my future. I'm not actively seeking a new partner, but I'm also not closed off to meeting new people. As for Sharon, I've blocked her from all my social networks, but she keeps creating new accounts to stalk me. It's easy to recognize her, but I don't engage. I've moved forward, and she's left clinging to the consequences of her own actions. But I gave her a glimpse into my life now, so she could see what she's lost. Her Instagram, once filled with pictures of high-profile parties, exotic vacations, and private beaches, is now reduced to sad quotes. That's what you get in exchange for destroying a stable marriage. Thank you for reading and for understanding the effort it takes to stay committed to your partner while being away from home. This often gets overlooked because the narrative is always about the poor, lonely Sharon. No, this isn't about poor Sharon. She took vows when she married me, and she should have honored them. What she did was incredibly selfish. But anyway, I'm in a great place now, focused on my journey and thriving. Best wishes to everyone striving to grow and move forward in their lives. What would you have done in my situation? Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you soon.